Without further ado, I just want to thank you all for coming to today's panel discussion, how to create an omni-channel digital experience that drives customer engagement, retention, and spend. My name is Allyson Klineman. I'm the Director of Agency Services for LevelUp, now officially a part of the Grubhub family. And I've had the pleasure of watching our team help our restaurant partners evolve their digital strategy over the last 4 years by leveraging digital ordering, payment, and loyalty experiences. I thought it would be helpful to frame today's conversation by sharing a few facts about how consumer trends are impacting our industry. First, digital ordering is growing 300% faster than dine-in traffic. Second, customers spend up to 50% more on digital orders as compared to orders placed in restaurant or by phone. This growth presents an advantage for restaurants, a true revenue opportunity. However, people today are downloading less than 1 app per month. Think about it. With the exception of any industry research, what's the last app that you downloaded on your phone? So, how do you maintain your piece of the digital pie, knowing there's even more competition for a customer's attention? At LevelUp, we aim to help our restaurant partners stay ahead of the curve. A lot of you may know us from the 200 restaurant apps we power today, including both Modern Market and Cowboy Chicken. And we saw this change in consumer behavior a few years ago and began developing Broadcast. Broadcast gives our partners access to exclusive partnerships with Yelp, Facebook, Google, and others to drive customer acquisition and make sure they are providing the convenience their customers expect. But that's enough about LevelUp, and I'm excited to give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we're going to get started. Michael, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So my name is Michael Schaefer. I'm the global lead for food and beverages at Euromonitor International. Euromonitor is an independent global market research firm. We have analysts in over 100 countries, managed by 14 global offices, and we provide independent third-party data on more than 30 consumer industries. In my role, I manage the global food service research while also looking to connect the dots with the broader food and beverage space.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Anderson. I'm the Director of Technology for Modern Market Eatery. We're a fast casual concept out of Denver, Colorado. We were founded in 2009 by 2 gentlemen from outside the restaurant industry that knew absolutely nothing about running restaurants. One was an engineer, and the other one came from a Wall Street banking firm. But both living in New York noticed that there wasn't any healthy, good-tasting food that they could eat regularly and not spend a ton of money. So seeing this gap in the market, they decided to form Modern Market, and we opened our first location in Boulder, Colorado in 2009. We're now 29th corporate location opens this Friday in Plano, Texas, and we have 3 licensed locations. We're in Colorado, Texas, Arizona, Maryland, and Washington, D.C.
That's awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Kennedy. I'm the president and CEO of Cowboy Chicken, which is a premium fast casual restaurant that specializes in wood-fired rotisserie chicken. We pair that with some delicious homemade sides, sandwiches, salads. We have some killer chicken enchiladas on our menu. We're based in Dallas, Texas. We started in 1981, and we actually really pioneered wood-fired rotisserie chicken back in the early 80s. Today we have 28 units in probably more states than makes sense. But you know, it's a long story, but we'll get into that, I'm sure. But we're having a lot of fun. We've got a great brand, we've got a great team, and we have great partners. What I don't have, though, is a pair of great socks like Brian has on, if you guys can see those. Those are awesome. Thanks for having us here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. And for those who have not had the opportunity to try both brands, I would encourage you to do so. Food is phenomenal. I thought we'd get started by talking about how you're building a digital strategy. So maybe, Brian, you can kick us off and tell us a little bit about your restaurant's digital presence, what digital platforms your brand has invested in, be that app, web, social, third-party channels, and we'll get started there.
The answer is yes. So our brand mission is to serve amazing, healthy food to as many people as possible. And we want to make that as frictionless and easy as we can for every guest that wants to dine with us. And so we have everything that Allyson just listed. We have web, mobile web, a LevelUp branded app. We use Olo, Rails, DoorDash. Every social media outlet you can imagine: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. So we're out there, easy to find.
And Sean, what about you? What are you guys doing for your digital today?
Well, I always make the joke that, we're still old-fashioned, right? We're so old-fashioned, we're still cooking with wood, right? But if you look at the technology that we employ, it's actually pretty sophisticated. So, we have an app also powered by LevelUp. Website, online ordering. We do, paid Google search. We email market. We do a lot of technologically cohesive things that worked well together. Mostly for the intent is to obviously communicate with our guests, have a presence, grow sales, sell more chicken. That's really the goal. So.
Awesome, and maybe Michael, you can help talk about sort of the adoption of digital strategies within existing restaurants, be that stateside or abroad. Who's ahead, and if there's anything that others can be doing in the space?
Yeah, I think I'd say there are dozens of examples of restaurants which are doing this well. I think some of the best examples I've seen to use outside the U.S. and inside the U.S., I've really been impressed by what we've seen by chains like Wagamama, which is a upscale Japanese chain in the UK. Shake Shack, another example of two chains that are continuously experimenting with their digital approach, experimenting with things like cashless outlets, test outlets where they can roll out new dishes to customers and have them vote on them on the app. That's something Wagamama has done. And so I think really for an existing outlet, it really becomes about continuous improvement. It becomes about trying new things, seeing what works. Obviously, that's often easier said than done. But I think the important point to keep in mind, and certainly what we're seeing at Euromonitor around the world, is the number of newcomers that are coming up there's no legacy. There's simply digital, there are phones, there's delivery, and they're building all of their outlets to meet that new reality. And so that process of experimentation, I think, is really important.
Awesome. And on the notion of identifying what works being easier said than done, would love to understand, Brian and Sean, what your main goals were in developing an engagement program.
You want to go first this time?
I'll take that. That's fine.
Switch it up a little.
Well, again, I'll go back to, obviously we wanted to sell more chicken, right? And so, but the space is changing so quickly, and there's so many new technologies and new ways that our guests want to interact with us, that our aim is to really just stay relevant and be where they want us to be, right? If they want to order on their phone, pay on their phone, come into our stores, pick up an order, not talk to us if they don't want to, and just leave. We want to be there to accommodate that. So the marketing efforts really kind of all center around our annual marketing initiatives, and they all are very thoughtfully put together in a way that all of those elements work together and promote the same thing at the same time, or kind of play off of one another. And we've got a really good marketing team that thoughtfully puts that together, and so it seems to be working.
A lot of the same. Again, we wanted to make it as easy as possible for every guest to interact with Modern Market. We want to make it, if you want to pay with your phone, we'll let you pay with your phone. If you want to call in your order and talk to a human, you can do that. We partner with a third-party phone answering service that integrates with our POS system so they can inject orders. If you want to, use a delivery service, we'll let you do that. And then, in terms of our strategy and marketing, we have two basic pathways. There's our app users, which have a few more perks and are opted into a few more promotions because they're app users. And then there's everyone else. And so everyone else being, you might see a promotion on social media, you might see it on some POP on the walls, or you might notice it on our digital menu boards while you're hanging out in line to order. And those two things pair together in terms of the bigger company initiatives are cyclical. And but again, we like our app users and reward them a little more heavily, and give them some opportunities for some more promotions. Or we often, if we're rolling out new menu items or seasonal items, we'll give the app users a free try, just because it's really easy for us to do that, and we know they're our loyal guests.
Fantastic. So it's clear that driving frequency and spend are two main objectives. Curious of these cross-channel campaigns that you have done to date, what has been the most effective? How are you experimenting with these different channels? And again, where have you seen the most success?
Well,
Switch it up
Okay.
again.
Go. No, it's whatever. You're ready. Go.
I'm ready. Well, actually, our most recent, most successful campaign has been, we launched Pronto Pickup, which was place your order, pay ahead of time, come in and pick it up. And with our guest base that were app members, we sent them all a very small incentive to try it for the first time. It was $1, maybe $2 to try it, just try it out. We had a 98% redemption rate on that offer. So very quickly, it allows us to announce a new service. It allows us to announce a new item. So that was probably one of the best, most successful campaigns we've had recently, as far as like redemption, the number of people that responded.
We see some similar results. We just recently changed to our fall menu, and when we do that, we push offers to the guests. Again, the app users are usually the quickest to redeem and the quickest to return. So we find high success there. We also now with our we recently, we spent the last year building a new website and chose a new online ordering partner. And we chose this architecture because it allowed us to integrate our loyalty program into our online ordering, whereas before we couldn't do that. And so doing that allowed us to engage more guests to become members of the loyalty program, because they didn't necessarily have to download the app to opt into loyalty. They could just create an account, log into the website, and order, and now we had their email address, and we could market to them that way, or they could receive the notifications without having the app on their phone about these special promotions. So they're app users without actually having to physically download the app. As Allyson mentioned, that's not something many of us are doing anymore. So that we've seen a lot of, we've seen continued growth with promotions and with redemptions of the promotions, because we have this new architecture that allows us to bridge those two systems without the dependency of the app living on your phone. We also now can get some really robust analytics behind that, both through the POS system, through our online ordering partner, of how the redemptions are being used, if they're getting done in-store or online. And so that's kind of fueling our marketing initiatives as we continue forward now.
And Michael, would you say that these sort of key elements of their strategies is something you're seeing in a larger trend fashion across the research that you were doing? Is that consistent with both, again, here in the United States or brands across the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think broadly speaking, I think one of the biggest things we see in most markets, certainly most high-income markets, is that drive to get customers using your app, getting meaningful data from that app in a way that is differentiated from what other competitors can do. I do think if we look at regions, we can say that parts of Asia, China above all, for a lot of reasons, you're going to see areas where they're actually a bit ahead of the curve in that way, where just because of the structure of the payments market and because of who's present, Alibaba, Tencent, that's the answer. It's making it easier for people to be on those platforms and drive things like cashless and so on. I mean, I think the other thing is, what about a digital strategy allows you, to the things your brand does well, how is it helping you to do that? Is it helping you to increase throughput, to reach your best consumers? The things that you do well, how does digital serve to enhance that rather than just being that thing that everyone does have to have and does have to be a part of, but how are you getting there?
Are you seeing then a big shift in how resources are being allocated between digital marketing and what we would call traditional marketing?
Sure, certainly. I mean, I think that's absolutely that was to me, I guess. Yes, so...
I'll open it up to you too as well. I'd love to hear more about how you're allocating resources.
Yeah, more globally, certainly. I mean, that's absolutely true. I think here, there have been some great conversations about how traditional marketing isn't going away. They certainly go hand in hand. But the idea of digital simply being a way to, someone has to control data on your customers. Someone will, one way or another, and so. This offers a path forward in every country to have some say in that and have some control over that process.
Sean, would you agree, or have you seen a shift in the way you're allocating marketing resources from digital and traditional?
We are moving more and more of our spend into digital and away from traditional because we're seeing results in that investment. And actually, we're seeing, maybe we're doing it wrong, but we're seeing that traditional, we were talking earlier at one of the brand exchanges that layering in traditional direct mail marketing seems to work and seems to continue to work, although we haven't really seen that. We've seen more success in digital. And so we're doing a lot of different things, and most of which has a very clear ability to track results, ROI, that kind of thing. And so to answer your question, more of that is shifting into digital. And
it sounds like arguably largely due to the ability to actually track and evaluate the return on those efforts?
Yeah, there's some exciting stuff out there. It's like, we work with a firm that allows us to post an ad on Facebook and track that entire guest through their entire transaction all the way through to our online ordering system into a purchase. And we can watch the whole thing work. It's like, that's a little spooky, right? It's a little Big Brother-ish, but the technology's out there to allow you to do that. And Brian's nodded his head and it's like, yeah, of course. He's an IT guy, but I'm not, right? I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, wow, that's a little freaky though, that you can actually, but you can prove the ROI, right? And I think that's what's critical.
Effective if done well, creepy if poorly executed.
No, I think it's creepy if it's done. I think it's a little creepy if it's done well too, but it's working.
Brian, what about you from the IT perspective? Any changes in what Sean has shared so far?
I sit right next to our director of marketing, and the other side is one of our co-founders, and so I'm always stuck in the middle of marketing discussions. And we spend about probably 70% of our budget on digital marketing and about 25-30% on traditional. And most of the traditional marketing that we do now, it's being driven from data from our POS system. So we use a firm that provides another service. It takes our credit card data out of our systems and then publishes us demographic information and maps on where consumers are and location to our restaurant, their frequency visit, et cetera. And so if we want to promote a new item at a restaurant, or if we want to just drive some sales in a sales decline to an area, we'll use that data and then send a direct mail ad based on what the information out of the POS system gives us for the consumers of that restaurant.
Fantastic. So I appreciate the context around the elements of your digital strategy, and I'm curious from an operations perspective. We work with Sweetgreen, and as a result of the demand during peak times and support to really fill the need of their customers during these busy times, they've had to build a back of house that actually mirrors their front of house operations. Curious if you guys have experienced similar, I would call, great problems to have to meet the increase in demand with your digital strategies.
Yeah, so we're in the process right now of designing a kitchen that'll effectively have 2 build lines because we have incurred the same challenge. Our newest location that's opening this week has a whole separate area for pickup and third-party orders. We've had to add additional stations in restaurants, POS stations or areas for pickup and to coordinate for delivery driver coming in. Some of our stores have as much as 30 to 40% of their sales are off-prem from third party or pickup. So it's a big challenge. We're also implementing a new KDS system in our restaurants that will allow us to have more robust on-demand capabilities when we need to fire up a second build line in the kitchen, so that will be a dynamic function in peak business hours. So yes, good problems to have.
Absolutely. Sean, have you had any operational impact as a result of your digital strategy?
Well, a lot of the same stuff, quite honestly. You know, when we launched Pronto Pickup, it was adopted very quickly, and our guests really understood it. They got it, and I think Starbucks and Panera and those guys kind of paved the way for that, right? And we're not going to pioneer something new and bold like that, but we're having to redesign our stores in order to accommodate not only that, but third-party delivery and pickup stations to kind of move that business away from your regular dine-in business and queue and flow and all the rest of that. But if done right, it really has the ability to really work pretty seamlessly, and you just have to redesign your stores to accommodate, right? And we're doing that. And we're doing that too. So you'll see that in new store design.
Perfect. Hopefully in Boston sometime soon.
Okay.
Michael, are you seeing similar trends
There's no Cowboys in
beyond the fast casual or even in the space?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'll zoom out a lot. That's what I can add here. I think one of the biggest shifts we're just seeing overall is a lot more competition and a lot more interest in just any kind of prepared meal occasion. So taking fresh ingredients, wrapping them in some kind of service, and providing them to consumers. That's where the growth is in the food and beverage industry more broadly. And that includes meal kits, that includes delivery, and that's a lot of occasions, that's a lot of transactions. And so I think what it's doing is bringing a lot of interest into this broader category. A lot of packaged foods companies, retailers starting to think like restaurant operators in terms of curation, in terms of sourcing fresh ingredients, in terms of how to provide some kind of service. Coca-Cola just bought a coffee shop chain, and so that I think how that lends into this is just this idea that there are a lot of newcomers who are thinking about how do we provide meals. If we look at drive-through as a big revolution maybe 50 years ago, now we have 4 or 5 new occasions that have come out of nowhere. Delivery, meal kits, all of these just in the last 5 to 10 years. So that's a huge shift. And with that comes just many different groups, operators looking to understand, well, what can the store look like? What can retail stores look like? Is a grocery store really just a meal fulfillment center? Ultimately, yes. And so it's an exciting time, but it's a lot of new eyes looking at this industry, for sure.
So it's interesting, although it wasn't the explicit question, each of you mentioned delivery, at least at a moment in there. So let's talk about the question that's on everyone's mind, third-party delivery aggregators. And I'd be curious how you guys are incorporating delivery into your digital strategy. Sean, you want to kick that one off? Brian?
Hey, I'll start.
Flip a coin?
for it.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'll go. So we've always offered delivery as a brand, right? And so it's something that gave us an advantage over a lot of our competition, and that the shift to third-party delivery, where now every restaurant has a delivery driver force and everybody can compete, it really has leveled the playing field. So as far as working with third-party delivery companies, we begrudgingly do so, but we're always looking for ways to kind of take a little bit of that business back and bring it back home, where we can control the experience a little bit better. We can make sure that we can control the food, the customer data, which is kind of critical, right? We want to make sure we can control that. But there's been a big shift in that field. And I think what's going to happen eventually is that the technology is going to kind of catch up to where it will be seamless at the restaurant level, and it won't be like this tablet hell that you go through, right, where you have all of these different platforms trying to send you orders. And you guys have kind of put that together a little bit better with Olo, to where it's like it just kind of comes right in, and I think that's going to start to shift.
The infamous wall of tablets behind the cash.
Yeah, but I think that's short-lived. I think that the technology and the aggregators and I think the technology will catch up, and I think that it's already being developed now, if not exists and just needs to be implemented.
Yeah, for sure. We went through tablet hell. We tried all the services. We're, as I mentioned, we're in almost coast to coast in the United States. We are in all the time zones, so at least for half the year, depending on where Arizona is. But yeah, so we went through the tablet hell, and we went through all the challenges of the different people coming into the stores from the different companies, and then all having different operational cultures and treating our product, according to that. And we said enough. And as part of the, sort of the fuel or impetus of switching to Olo from our original online ordering provider, we wanted to utilize Rails, and we decided to go exclusive with DoorDash for delivery at all our locations, and use Rails so that we didn't have to deal with the tablet and take an employee away from a guest in in the restaurant wanting to interact with the brand on a personal level to, hold on, wait a second, I need to put this order in because this tablet won't stop beeping in my ear. So utilizing Rails as the injector for the third-party order has worked great for us. There's just a couple little challenges we learned operationally around that due to some limitations of those integrations right now, but it's stuff that they're working on developing. So it should become easier over time.
Fantastic. So as you can imagine, me personally being a Seattle native, on a day like today, hard-pressed to leave your house, so delivery becomes ever more critical. Would be curious, Michael, from your perspective, if you're seeing similar trends as it pertains specifically to delivery, especially with third-party aggregators.
Absolutely. I think one of the most important trends involving third-party aggregators and these platforms more broadly, and it's come up again a lot at this conference, is as more and more of these platforms, whether it's payments or reservations or third-party delivery, come within reach of just about every restaurant and become necessary, what are the levers you can pull to differentiate yourself? And so to your point about, what can we take control of in the delivery process? And I think that's probably the most interesting trend, thinking that through. Is it packaging? Is it the menu? Is it speed? What are the ways that you can take some of that relationship back? Because obviously that is the big concern, that we have a list in our head of maybe 4 apps we go to find out where we're going to eat, and where does an individual restaurant fit into that? And so I think that's probably one of the most important trends globally as well. I think everyone is thinking about it, thinking about how they're going to differentiate that offer when everyone is going to, I think that in fact a dwindling handful of apps to get that meal.
Well, I think to that point, very much reinforces what you were saying earlier, Sean, that it is important to meet your customers in the places they already exist today, and driving that additional convenience to capture an order you may have otherwise missed. So it's interesting to see that trend is spanning beyond just the United States. With that, I would love to just talk a little bit more about results that you're seeing. So I guess maybe Michael, we'll start with you again. What metrics would you recommend restaurants use to measure digital success? And then of course, my standard question, what trends are you seeing?
Sure. I think what all of this comes down to is engagement. How much of your sales are coming through an app? Is that driving more traffic into your stores? I think there's just a broader question of managing the relationship with the customer So I mean, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, one way to start is simple app usage, how and when and who, but also, again, how is the digital strategy allowing you to differentiate yourself? Is it just a box that's being ticked, or is it a larger, more central part of your strategy? And so, I mean, I think we've seen some great examples of that around the world. Domino's always comes up, but I think one example that I haven't heard mentioned in a while, a few years ago, I believe this was in Australia, they actually, through your app, you could design your own pizza, and then you could sell it. They would put it up on their website, and if people bought it, you would get, like, I don't know if it was actual cash or if, or some kind of loyalty or gift points, I can't recall. But it became a pretty big deal, and you had people, who were becoming like pizza millionaires basically by selling this. And so that was an example of digital engagement that's fun. It's gimmicky, but it also was providing ideas and data and actually giving money back to people. So I think if you can do something like that that really isn't just viral, but is actually fun, actually allows you to do something with the brand that others aren't doing, that's the gold standard, I think.
And Sean, what results have you seen from your digital strategy? Are there primary metrics that you're using to measure success beyond, of course, selling more chicken?
Well, we're always looking to add app users, right, and convert our non-app guests to be an app user. And we do that a couple of different ways, right? We offer them a $5 incentive to download the app and use it for the first time. From there, we have their data, so we know when they're in our stores and when they're not. We can invite them back if we haven't seen them in a while. And we offer a birthday reward. Anytime we launch, which you don't often, but anytime we launch a new item or an LTO, it allows us to kind of help advance promote that, right, with that special group. So right now we've got about 40,000 users that are using our app. About 6% of our overall transactions flow through that, which it sounds low, and actually I thought we were doing like reasonably okay until I talked to Jeff Levine, who's right there, who's like 48% of his transactions flow through his LevelUp app. I'm like, man, okay, well, we got a lot of work to do, but still, to us, that equates to about $2 million a year of revenue that flows through that. So that helps us track that, right? So we look at, okay, how do we raise that percentage? How do we convert more of those guests into high-frequency users? And how do we reach out and touch more often and just say, hey, thanks for your business? So.
And Brian, same question for you. What sort of metrics are you using to gauge success?
Don't have a whole lot to add to that. I think he covered most of it. The only, I think, differentiation now is that due to the way we've kind of restructured how we're integrating our systems, we're able to get more data on each channel, as well as how, if we're running promotions or LTOs, where those actual promotions are getting redeemed, so that we know where to use our resources the next time we want to market. So it gives us, it allows us to make better decisions as we move forward in terms of marketing spend.
And with regards to digital ordering specifically, have you seen those bring in incremental sales with the strategy that you've employed so far?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, too.
Fantastic. That was an easy one. Michael, is there anything else you wanted to add as it pertains to food trends differing between the U.S. and others, how they're evaluating results beyond what you've shared so far?
I mean, I think ultimately, every chain is and independent is evaluating, whether this works in roughly the same way. I think in terms of trends, I would say there are areas where Asia is ahead in terms of digital adoption. Otherwise, I mean, the only other thing I would add there is if you look at Western Europe, that's an example of a market where they're far ahead of the curve in terms of things like sustainability, in terms of food waste, and so on. So, for some of those markets, that might be an area where you can do different things with a digital strategy to think about how you're using food, how you're tracking what you're using. But broadly speaking, I think the metrics for success are going to be the same across markets.
And do you anticipate the focus on things like sustainability trickling back to the United States over time and that being more of a core focus as we move forward?
I think it'll always take a slightly different form. So if we look at, say, Western Europe, food waste is a huge part of the conversation right now. A few years ago, carbon footprints were a huge part of this conversation. So you had chains that were publishing the carbon footprint and saying, consider trying something other than the beef, to have the chicken. I don't know if I see that particular trend coming to the US anytime soon. I think different markets are always going to interpret sustainability in different ways. I do think the movement towards more vegetable-based eating, more flexitarian eating, that seems to be fairly global in scope for a lot of reasons, across a lot of different cultural reasons. So I think that we could see gain steam for sure.
Interesting. And Brian, just curious if that's something you've seen impact Modern Market at all. I know what I know of your menu, having healthy options is a big focus. Is sustainability at all a part of that strategy?
Yeah, it is, and it has a lot to do with how we pick our vendors. And so one of the things our brand has done since we started is we've sourced clean ingredients. So no added sugars, no preservatives, no food coloring, hormone, antibiotic-free meat products. We work with, for example, there's recently our pickle provider could no longer keep up with the amount of pickles we needed because our brand had grown since we had initiated our relationship with them, and so we could no longer use them because they couldn't keep up with our demand, and so we had to start making pickles in-house because we couldn't find another pickle brand to replace them that had a clean profile of ingredients that met our standards, and so. Those are always huge considerations for us, and now the bigger consideration is this partner going to be able to be sustainable with us as we continue to grow, not just in terms of sustainability in their business practices, but are their manufacturing or production facilities going to be able to keep up with the demand?
And Sean,
That's awesome.
Either sustainability or even selecting vendors as you continue to scale and the importance of that on the business. Is that something you also are considering when evaluating results?
Yeah, one of the things, we serve all natural, hormone-free chicken, but one of the things that's recently come to light as we spread across the country is where we buy our wood from and where we get our wood from. And so we do use local wood, right? Because if you start to transport wood across the state lines, you start to run into all sorts of regulatory items because of, the varmints that may be in the wood that you don't want to relocate to other parts of the country. So we use a local wood source, and we for our wood burning rotisserie ovens, which I think is kind of a unique component of that question. Absolutely. That applies to us. So
fantastic. Well, with that, I would love to just spend a few minutes opening it up to the audience, make sure we leave time for any questions that you guys have for the three up here. So if we want to switch gears a little bit and take some questions, I will do my best, starting with you, Nico. I don't know if we've got a mic for those in the audience, but maybe you can stand and yell at the top of your lungs.
I think everybody in this room probably, and certainly me, and I'm not an operator, would love to understand how marketing and app usage and conversion can play into the proliferation of these third-party online ordering and delivery services today. How do you convert? Because we all know that if labor doesn't change, right, if labor's largely static at a given period of time, then those incremental sales, even giving away 25, 30, 35%, can still make economic sense. Because now you're playing with 70% margin, not 30% margin, right? Which is the only reason that you're doing those third-party sales. They're incremental sales. But don't you want to get more of that? And don't you want to convert those? Doesn't one want to convert those to your native online ordering solution, your Olo or your whatever you're using on that front, or maybe LevelUp, right? So that you can then own that customer experience again. Does in-house driver management and delivery, do the economics start making sense on that again? I mean, what does this look like, and how do you use a LevelUp or other things like it, or other things outside of loyalty or marketing, to help convert those customers from marketplace customers to your customers?
I'll jump in on that one to start with. Great question. So, as I've mentioned already, we're opening a new location at the end of this week in Texas. And if you walked into this location as compared to any of our previous ones, if you're an operator, you'd probably notice several differences. And we redesigned, it's a smaller footprint in general. So one, we noticed that a lot of the retail spaces that we want to be in right now, the landlords are turning over tenants, but the spaces that are available are typically smaller than what we would normally consider our footprint. But because of the change in the way consumers are ordering, we don't need as much square footage as we used to anymore, because not everyone's coming in to sit in our restaurant, right? And we've learned that from our online ordering numbers, our third-party delivery numbers. So we've scaled back the size of the restaurant, which reduces the rent payment, reduces any other payments associated with sales to the landlord. And then we redesigned our kitchen layout to require less labor. So we built a smarter kitchen, and we've started engineering the menu to be a little smarter as well, to hopefully reduce some of the labor component. So that's two things that we could control in-house to kind of set us up for success in that. And then driving sales and converting people to use our app versus going to DoorDash directly to order from us or something like that is a challenge. One of the things we did was redesigning our website so that we make it easier for you to come in and order from us, but we don't highlight the sort of choose delivery button as much as we highlight the place it to go order button. So some subtle things there to drive people. And then we're still letting people check out as a guest, but there's an internal debate going on right now because some other brands like Sweetgreen you mentioned, you have to set up an account with them if you want to order from them. They don't let you check out as a guest. So they get your email address, and so that they can market you and they can say, hey, you haven't ordered in 90 days, I'm going to send you an offer. So that's something we're considering right now as well, so that we can kind of capture that and try and encourage you to use our app to place your order rather than to go to another location to do it.
And see, we're probably a little bit different, right? So we've got delivery drivers in-house already, and we have for years. And so we have this fight, right, between our guest, third party, like we'll use Uber, DoorDash, or those guys. They send, we don't get that data. We have the data of our guests, and we're always looking to hold on to our guest data, because that's really the goal, right? That you really want to know who your guests are, frequency, what they eat, all of that stuff, right? So that data is super valuable. And so for us, we're always trying to really promote the fact that we do deliver. It's like but begrudgingly, again, we still partner with Uber Eats and DoorDash and those guys, because most guests that use those platforms are not loyal to Cowboy Chicken or to Modern Market. They're loyal to Uber Eats, and they know that that's the fastest way to have a wide selection. So I think you still have to be on there and be represented. And we can talk offline about the financials of the whole. Well, you're still making incremental margins, but you break that down, and I think it's less than you would think it is. So we're always no, it's not. It's very little, if any. But we're always looking to bring that business and that data back home.
I should also add that since we went away from having 4 or 5 delivery partners in each restaurant down to just putting all our eggs in one basket with DoorDash, we renegotiated our contract in such a way that it's more beneficial for us. And so as we grow and continue to grow with them, it's just like credit card fees. Every year we can chip a little bit more off that number as we add more stores, because we're processing more money with them. The same thing with DoorDash. So we're using that as part of our strategy as well.
And if I could add one thing to that, just zooming out a bit, I think we have some examples of chains in China, elsewhere, where can you tie the app into the in-store experience in some way? Like, how can it improve the in-store experience, either how you're buying? There are coffee chains out there that require you. There's one in China called Luckin Coffee that requires you to use the app to order even in store. That's not going to work for everybody, but I think there is something to be said the way going forward. In these newly designed outlets, how can you tie together the app with what's going on in store in a way that people just use it as a matter of course. Now, obviously, the hard part is figuring out what that is, but I think that is partly where we're going.
Well, it sounds like Modern Market's kind of got a little bit of that figured out, right? Like they're our VIP guests, right? We give them special treatment that we don't give to everybody else. But if you want to sign up for our club, you can be in that club too. And I think that's a great approach.
You've chosen 2 hours of your time, an hour of your time to come into the store. I mean, I think that's, if you can do that, that's half the battle.
That just gave me an interesting idea. I wonder if we could figure out a way that we could, how they have like on-demand pricing for toll roads during commuter hours. It drives up the toll. If you reverse that and incentivize the app users, they get a little break for using the app, or get a little cheaper toll for using the toll pass rather than cash. So maybe there's.
Allie's writing that down. She's gonna take that back.
I want a piece of that.
Note taken.
She's gonna take that back
Great idea,
to
Brian.
headquarters.
Next sprint, please. Next sprint.
How does all this extra marketing affect you in terms of same-store sales and same-store entree counts?
What was the last bit? Same store.
Same-store, but entree counts.
Entree counts.
Yeah.
So just like any brand, we have some stores that continue to grow same-store sales. We have some that hover, and we have some that are underperformers. So we use different strategies in different stores and try different things. Entree counts, our menu's weird in the sense that you can buy a half salad and a cup of soup or half a pizza. And so what we count as an entree isn't necessarily a traditional entree at every concept, or we're not like a bowl concept that everything's a bowl, so that's what you get. So we look at sales in general, or guest counts, or average check prices as our metrics to see how we're doing in that regard.
And I would say the same. I would say sales are a little choppy, but 18 is better than 17. And I think that generally we're all kind of in the same boat. And I think that as an industry we're probably a little overbuilt. So I think the game, or the goal really is to really engage with your guests, really create a relationship where they become frequent guests of your brand, and they really love your brand. And I think that's kind of what this technology plays into. It's creating a stronger engagement opportunity by at least capturing the data and being able to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? We haven't seen you in a while. We miss you. Come back. Or, hey, thanks for coming in so often. I sent out an email to our top 100 users. I sent out, just as the president of the brand, just sent out an email, said, hey, you guys are great. We really appreciate your business. And they responded to that. They were like, oh, you guys are great. That's awesome. It's just stuff like that, I think, helps. I know it does. I know it helps create that relationship, and I think that's critical. That's key. That's the goal.
I guess with you guys, if there is one thing that you want to leave, it's a concept, idea in the audience mind to discuss when we get to Chihuly later, what would that be? Michael, let's start with you.
I think just, again, this ongoing idea of the app and the store. If you have kiosks in store, what are the ways that the data from the consumer stays with them when they enter the store, and not in the form of the server saying, hey, you ordered this last time, because that won't work. But I think going forward, we are going to see more of that. This idea that we know your preferences. If we have ordering kiosks, how can we suggest things? How can we reach out in that way? I think that's what this is all striving for in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so from an IT perspective, when I think about that, I start thinking about all the cool technologies that are out there, and wishing I had the pockets of Domino's to let people order from their watch or order from their Xbox, and that's just not reality for me now. So I would say kind of very similar, since the majority of us don't have a budget like that, what can we do to meet people at their place of comfort and engage them with our brand so that they become a loyal customer.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think that I think for us and our goal, and Domino's is a good example because the goal is to make it as easy as possible for your guests to not only engage but transact with you, right? If your online ordering system is clunky and it's hard to maneuver and it's a pain in the ass and they don't want to, I'll just go somewhere else where it's easier. And quite honestly, we're a little guilty of that. So we're revamping some of our systems in order to make it super easy for a guest to not only order but pay and come in. And they have high expectations of convenience. They want delicious food, but they want it to be so super easy for them. And if you can't make it that easy for them, then fix that. That would be my advice. I'm not sure that anybody's looking for advice, but that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to make it even easier for our guests to enjoy delicious wood-fired rotisserie chicken, and we're going to try to sell more of it.
Well, and I think you're spot on there as someone who conveniently lives above a Domino's. The ability to reorder your favorite pizza far too often really is what does it for me. It's the convenience factor over alternative, in some cases, maybe better pizza options, but being able to use a pizza emoji in some cases, or at least quickly reorder my favorites, that's what keeps me coming back.
See, exactly.
Yep.
Make it that easy, and that's a win.
Awesome, guys. Well, we do have a few more minutes. I would encourage any last-minute questions. Otherwise, maybe 5 extra minutes to get ready for tonight. But we'll be up here for a few more minutes if you guys have other questions you didn't want to ask in front of the audience. So feel free to stop by and say hi. But, oh, do we have one?
Yeah, I have a question.
Perfect.
Related to what you said about the incremental sales of Uber, I agree with you completely. It's not how they sell it.
If your restaurant is pretty much at full capacity, you're pretty much going to turn off the Uber apps because it's taking your sales, even though they'll tell you, no, this is incremental sales, but you don't have the capacity to fulfill that, or you're going to have your own customers suffer because of that order that's going to probably end up being cold because it took 15 minutes to get there. So I agree with you completely.
Right, yeah, but it's a big challenge. I mean, figuring that out, everybody in this room, figuring that out, unless the Uber guys are here. I mean, they're here somewhere. But for all the operators in the room, figuring that out, that's a big project, and we need to solve it. There's a way to make it work where everybody can win, but right now I don't think we're winning.
Well, I think on the notion of trying to win moving forward, that is everything we had for today. So really appreciate all of you spending the last hour learning a little bit more about digital strategy. So thank you all, and thank you to our panelists.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.